Game 1 of the first round of the NBA playoffs is literally just days away, and if you thought the excitement of the postseason would stop people from making mock trades for the offseason, you'll be mistaken. But hey, I'm one of them. What inspired this video was a Bleacher Report article that dropped saying the top landing destinations for stars who aren't in the playoffs. And when you got teams like the Phoenix Suns and the Philadelphia 76ers underachieving, you're gonna have some pretty interesting trades. There are a few trades in this article that I thought were really interesting and I think could potentially actually work. Then there are others that I have my concerns and reservations about, and that's what we're gonna get into in this video. Now, the first trade that stood out to me, not only because of the person who was involved in this trade, but the potential effects that it could have in this league. In the Bleacher Report article by Zach Buckley, he says LaMelo Ball to the Orlando Magic in exchange for Anthony Black, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and 2 first-round picks. I only have one concern with this trade, and it has nothing to do with any of the players that are landing in the respective spots, but I don't think that is a package for LaMelo Ball. Just right off the rip, I don't think the Hornets are getting enough with Anthony Black and KCP. I think this trade doesn't work unless you include like a Cole Anthony or a Jalen Suggs, and I don't want, if you're the Orlando Magic, to add Jalen Suggs into this package, because the primary thing that is selling me on this package for the Orlando Magic is you have LaMelo Ball, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, and then you have on the side one of the top defenders in the leagues in Jalen Suggs. And we know where the Orlando Magic are right now. They just got out of the play-in, have a date with Boston in the first round, and this is a very young and exciting Orlando Magic team led by 2 really good forwards. And what is really lacking is that star-studded guard, and I think LaMelo Ball fits that perfectly. LaMelo, since he was at his Chino Hills days, has been known as a really good dynamic playmaker. He can shoot the 3 ball very well from long range, even though the stats don't show that specifically. His 3-point percentage isn't the best, but we know that he could be effective when the going gets tough. He's able to overcome that as a 3-point shooter. But I think what sells this for me is the pairing of Paolo and LaMelo. The Orlando Magic are, I think, dead last in pace in the league. And when you have a fast guard who could go up and down the floor in transition, we've seen LaMelo Ball and Miles Bridges, how that's worked throughout his tenure in Charlotte. I think this is just a way for the Orlando Magic to elevate themselves. And when I was watching the play-in game against the Atlanta Hawks a few days back, they mentioned that the Orlando Magic don't have guards who are shot creators. You're getting a majority of your volume shots from Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero, which explains why they're dead last in pace in the league. You know, if you look at the Indiana Pacers or the Atlanta Hawks, teams that are fast, the Chicago Bulls with Josh Giddey and Kobe White, Tyrese Halliburton on the Pacers, these are guards who are flying up and down the court. And when you add LaMelo Ball to this team, and we know how good Paolo Banchero has been this season, in my opinion, if you add LaMelo Ball to this Orlando Magic team, this could potentially be the East Coast version of the Oklahoma City Thunder. LaMelo Ball, Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner. I think what would make that into that OKC type team is obviously if you add LaMelo Ball, there's your SGA, not to compare him to SGA at all, but there's your SGA in a sense. And then you have Paolo and Franz. But you need that big center in the middle who is holding stuff down, like an Isaiah Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren in the middle. I think once you add that, I think Jonathan Isaac, he's solid, but that's not going to cut it in terms of trying to elevate the Orlando Magic. And I think there's so much potential in creating a roster around LaMelo, Paolo, Franz Wagner, Jalen Suggs, all those guys. I think there's so much potential in that team. And at the end of the day, we see championship caliber teams have that multiple star lineup, whether it's a big 3 or a big 2. I think adding LaMelo Ball with Paolo, there's your core of having a young dynamic duo, and that's something that I see that they can dominate the Eastern Conference with. But all that to say, get him out of Charlotte and get him to Orlando immediately. The next move that I saw that I was kind of iffy about, but it wouldn't really hurt to pull off if you're the Detroit Pistons, is trying to acquire Zion Williamson. And in my opinion, I think it's just not working with the Pelicans. Since his debut, we've all been waiting for Zion to have that breakout season like Ja or like SGA. And it just hasn't happened because of how much injuries has played a part in his development as a player. Undoubtedly, we know the talent Zion has. You know, he was coming out of the draft as arguably one of the best draft prospects coming out of Duke. And it's just unfortunate that a duration of his career has been hindered because of injury. And if you're the Pelicans, you're looking at this as how much can we pour left into Zion Williamson? I think the Pelicans are in an awkward position. You have Zion Williamson, you traded away Brandon Ingram, and then you still have CJ McCollum. It's really weird. weird. And I think you move on from Zion Williamson, as sad as it is to say. And it feels like 2019 wasn't really that long ago since you drafted him, and it's 2025. So 6 years is like a really long time for you to put that much faith into a first overall draft pick. I wouldn't call him a bust at all. It's just that you have to move on in a sense that he's not able to stay onto the court. You have a roster constructed weirdly of like, you're not in a rebuilding phase, but you're not good enough to make a play-in. And it's like you're in the weird middle position of like, you have veteran and young players that are on the team, and it's like they don't really have a clear direction of where they want to take this team. And I think getting rid of Zion at this point is the best. And if you're the Detroit Pistons coming into the offseason, you're coming off a season where you landed the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference, and the year before that you lost 20 plus straight games in a row. Cade Cunningham has emerged as a real star in this league, and looking to make a move for Zion Williamson is a risk and a gamble in itself, but the potential fruits of the labor that you could possibly get with getting a pairing of Zion and Cade, and if they both live up to how they're supposed to be in this league, I think, like the Orlando Magic, Apollo and LaMelo Ball, that's just going to be something extremely fun to watch, and it could possibly pay in the playoffs as well. And when you have something special brewing in Detroit, you're making the playoffs after a really bad season the last year, you don't want to take the Sacramento Kings approach and just kind of blow it up completely, fire your coach, trade away your star guard and De'Aaron Fox. You want to kind of build off of that success, you know, to make those risky moves that could potentially work out in the long run. And I think Zion Williamson being on the Detroit Pistons with Cade Cunningham, building around that core, I think that'll be something special in the Eastern Conference. Let me just cut to the chase on this one. We know Kevin Durant is out of Phoenix this offseason. A really lackluster season, not even making the playoffs. Like, you have the Dallas Mavericks who traded away Luka Doncic in the worst trade in NBA history, and they somehow make the play-in, and you have Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and Kevin Durant on a team, and you struggle to even secure the 10th seed in the Western Conference. Hey, just blow it up. But Kevin Durant has been fighting on Twitter with fans per usual, and it's seeming like that he's going to be departing with the Phoenix Suns this offseason. And the trade that this article proposed was something that I was looking at as this is potentially really interesting for the league. But then after taking a deeper look into it, I don't know how I feel about it. The trade proposes Kevin Durant to the Dallas Mavericks in exchange for Klay Thompson, PJ Washington, Jaden Hardy, and a few first-round picks. Now, at first thought, when I'm thinking about KD, Anthony Davis, and Kyrie Irving on the same team, a big three in Dallas, I'm like, I'm all for it. That's something that I want to see, a potential team to make it to the Western Conference Finals or the final as a whole. And then I'm looking closer into it, and I'm like, I feel like I've seen this before, and we have seen this before with Kevin Durant on the Brooklyn Nets with Kyrie Irving and James Harden, and it just didn't work out just off the simple fact of injuries. You know, Kyrie Irving just tore his ACL. He might not be back until January of next season. Anthony Davis, we know him as a player who is really good but struggles with staying on the court and being healthy. And Kevin Durant, this tail end of his career, has kind of struggled with being healthy as well. He ended off the season suffering an injury, and it's just it just doesn't seem good in terms of a risk that you take for the Dallas Mavericks, especially after trading away Luka Doncic, of having 3 injury-prone players, and I just don't like it at all. On paper, this pairing has the potential to be one of the best big threes that we've ever seen in basketball. I mean, all of them have won championships on their own separate occasions, and I think it is just the injury factor. And if we've seen this before with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant in Brooklyn, we know it would be a dream on NBA 2K. But in real life, I just don't see it working out at all. There's no doubt in my mind in the games that they are able to play on the court together, it would just work flawlessly. Kevin Durant is a guy who could play off the ball. We know Kyrie Irving as a semi-ball dominant guard, but we saw him and Luka make it to the conference finals or the NBA finals for that, and it didn't even like cross my mind of it wasn't a pairing that wasn't gonna be able to work. Anthony Davis, we've seen him with LeBron James, we've seen him with Austin Reeves, Russell Westbrook, those ball dominant guards in a sense, and it still works. So I know that this pairing, in terms of them being on the court and them being able to play basketball and win games, in my mind, I know that I'm not doubting them at all as a team that wouldn't be able to score or wouldn't be able to win as a whole. But just being able to be healthy and be on the court, it just doesn't seem like it'll work. It just seems like a repeat of the 2021 Brooklyn Nets. And it is something that we might get robbed of ever seeing, but I think there are definitely other places that Kevin Durant can go. I know the Spurs are one of the options that we're seeing in the rumor mill. We're seeing the Houston Rockets, and ironically all these Texas teams, but I think get him to the Milwaukee Bucks with Damian Lillard. But I think it will be interesting to see where Kevin Durant potentially goes this offseason. I think it's almost like determined that he's going to be not in a Phoenix Suns uniform to start the season next year. Potentially even Devin Booker, but that's a different combo for a different day. But hey, it will be a really exciting offseason. But before we even look into that, we have so much good basketball ahead of us this playoffs. But yeah, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.